Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you'd like to get some weeknight meal ideas for your family, then just keep watching. For dinner this first night, I tried a new recipe for something called $1 Million Lasagna. This recipe is from plain chicken. I will include it in the description box below. First, to get started, I have some ground turkey that I have browned. To that, I'm going to add in my tomato sauce, spaghetti sauce, then the Italian seasoning. Next, I'm going to add in just a pinch of sugar. The recipe does not call for this, but anytime I make spaghetti sauce, I always use just a little pinch of sugar. I'm going to stir that around and then season this to taste with some salt and pepper. And finally, I'm going to simmer this for about 5 to 10 minutes. I forgot to mention I have the oven preheating to 375 degrees. In this large mixing bowl, I'm going to add in my egg and beat it a little bit with a fork. I did notice in the comments on this recipe that a lot of people said it needed a second egg, so you'll see me add a second egg later on. Next, I'm going to add in the sour cream, then the cottage cheese. Sometimes when I make my lasagna, I will use cottage cheese. Sometimes I use ricotta. It just depends. You can use either or. And a side note, I do not like cottage cheese. Like just to sit down and eat it by itself, I won't eat it. But if you don't like it either, try it in the lasagna. You really can't taste it. Then I'm going to add in the cream cheese. And here you see me add that second egg. I'm going to add in my parsley flakes. And then I'm going to stir that together. I added just a little bit of salt and pepper to taste and then stirred that in. Now I'm going to get started on layering the lasagna. So in this pan, I am going to spray it with some cooking spray. Then I'm going to place a little bit of the sauce in the bottom of the pan and spread that out. Next, I'm going to add a layer of noodles. These are just regular noodles that I have boiled and drained. You can use the oven ready if you would prefer. Then I'm going to add a layer of my cheese mixture. Next is the Parmesan cheese and then shredded mozzarella cheese. And then I'm just going to repeat those layers. So I'm going to do sauce, noodles, cheese mixture, then the shredded cheese, and repeat that until I've used up all the ingredients. And you want to make sure that you end with the shredded mozzarella cheese layer. The recipe doesn't call for this next step, and you can skip it if you'd like, but I like to sprinkle a little bit of Italian seasoning on the top. I'm going to spray a piece of aluminum foil with some cooking spray just so the cheese doesn't stick to it. I'm going to cover this with foil and cook this for about 30 minutes covered. Uncover it and then cook it for another 20 to 25 minutes. And here's the finished lasagna. If you'd like, you can broil it for a couple minutes if you'd like it a little bit more brown, but you'll definitely want to let this set for at least 15 to 20 minutes before you try to slice it and serve it. To go along with the lasagna, I'm going to make some of this Texas toast from Pepperidge Farm. I'm just going to cook it according to the instructions on the back of the package. And here are the finished plates. So we have the lasagna and garlic bread, and then I made some side salads with homemade ranch dressing. The ranch dressing is really easy. I just used the recipe on the back of the Hidden Valley Ranch packet, and it's so delicious. If you've never tried it, I recommend you give it a try. We really enjoyed this. We had my 12-year-old little brother and 14-year-old little sister over this night, and we all liked the lasagna. It was a little bit different than the regular lasagna that I make. I don't use the cream cheese or sour cream, but it was really good, so I recommend you give it a try. For dinner this next night, we just had leftovers, so I had a leftover sloppy joe, and then for my sides and my husband's meal, on this particular day, T-Mobile came into our neighborhood. They were giving away free swag, I guess they call it, and then they had a food truck there, and all of the residents were getting a free barbecue plate. So you got a barbecue pulled pork sandwich, potato salad, and baked beans. So my husband had a leftover pulled pork sandwich with the potato salad and baked beans, and then I had some of the potato salad and baked beans with mine, and that was dinner this night. Tonight for dinner, I'm making salmon patties. So I have this can of salmon that I'm going to open and then drain. This made 4 good sized salmon patties, but if you have a larger family, you might want to use 2 cans. And I'll leave a link to this can opener in the description box below in case you're interested. This is not at all sponsored. My husband bought me this Kitchen Mama can opener for Christmas. We actually don't have a lot of counter space, and so I wanted to get rid of my can opener that was on the counter, and so my husband found this one, and I love it. You just put it on the can, press a button, it goes around automatically by itself. You press the button to stop it, and then when you take the lid off, it doesn't leave the sharp edges like other can openers do, so it's great if you have kids. Now I'm going to pick through my salmon. If you've never used canned salmon before, you might be surprised to find out there are bones inside. So there are these little bitty pin bones. I don't really worry about getting all these. I mean, I try to get as much as I can, but they'll break down for the most part. But what I do make sure to get are these little round bones here. They don't really break down that well, so I like to pick those out. And then there is just a little bit of skin in here. It doesn't bother me. It really breaks down, but if you want to remove it, you can. And for one of the sides, I'm going to make this Kraft macaroni and cheese. This is the cauliflower kind. We like this. I'm just going to cook it according to the package instructions. So now that I've got my salmon in this bowl, I'm going to flake it and break it apart with a fork. Next, I'm going to add in my egg. If you're doubling up on the salmon, you might want to use 2 eggs. And then tonight, I added a little bit of mayonnaise. I've never done this before, but I've seen several other recipes. It was good. I mean, I couldn't really tell that big of a difference between using the mayonnaise and when I normally don't. So, I mean, you can or you can't, whichever you prefer. Then I'm going to add in some salt and pepper. Next, you're going to want to add your binder. Now, my granny always used cornmeal, so that's what I use. I used about a 1/4 cup of the cornmeal and a 1/4 cup of flour. You can use all flour, or you can use breadcrumbs or crushed up crackers, whichever way you prefer. I'm going to add in a splash of milk and then stir that together, and you just want to have a consistency to where you can make patties. You don't want it to be too wet, but you also don't want it to be really dry. I'm just going to form that mixture into patties, and then in this skillet, I've got it on about medium heat. This is just vegetable oil that's been heating up. I'm going to add in my patties. I'll cook them for about 4 or 5 minutes on one side, and then flip it over and cook it another 4 or 5 minutes on the other side. The salmon's already cooked, so really all you're doing is cooking the egg inside. Once it's cooked all the way through, I'm going to remove these to a paper towel lined plate just to drain a little bit of the grease off. In this pot, I have my drained macaroni noodles. I'm just going to add in the butter and milk according to the package instructions. I'm also going to add in the cheese packet. And then I've mentioned this before on my channel, but anytime I make boxed macaroni and cheese, I always like to add in a slice of American cheese to it. It just makes it more creamy and cheesy in my opinion. But I'm going to add that and then mix that together, and that will be ready. And here are the finished salmon patties, the macaroni and cheese. And then for the other side, I just took a can of peas. I drained it. I put it in this little pot, and I added a little bit of butter, salt, and pepper, and I just warmed it up while everything else was cooking. Here are the finished plates with my salmon patties. I like to eat it with ketchup. For my husband tonight, he requested it as a sandwich. He'd never had that before, but we've had crab cake sandwiches, so we thought it would be pretty similar. I just have this hamburger bun. I added a little bit of mayonnaise, ketchup, lettuce, and tomato. He actually really enjoyed it as a sandwich, but he said the next time he would like a little bit of cheese with it, and that was dinner this night. Tonight for dinner, I'm making another recipe from plain chicken. This is grilled Greek chicken. Again, I will include a link to the recipe in the description box below. I've made this before. It's just been a while, and it's really good. I'm going to start out by marinating my chicken. So I like to do this in a measuring cup. I just mix everything together. It makes it easy. I'm going to add in my olive oil, then my lemon juice, then the salt. Then I'm going to add the oregano. And the recipe calls for Greek seasoning, so I'm using this Cavender's. Then I'm going to add the garlic powder and then the paprika. Then I'm going to whisk that together really well. In this Ziploc bag, I have 2 chicken breasts. They were really large, so I cut them in half. I'm going to add in my marinade, try and get as much of the air out as possible, close it up really well, and then I'm going to shake it to distribute that marinade. Then I'm going to place this into the refrigerator. Now, I'm doing this overnight, but if you only have 30 minutes, that will work as well. For one of the sides, I'm making some Greek potatoes. This is also a recipe of plain chickens that I will include in the description box below. I have these baby red potatoes. I'm going to slice them in half and add them to this large bowl. I'm going to add in my olive oil, Cavender's, and some lemon juice, and then I will put these onto a cookie sheet and bake them. Now, the recipe says to bake them at 375 covered for 45 minutes, then uncover and cook them another 20 to 30 minutes. But on this particular night, my husband had a conference call, and so I was needing to get dinner done so he could eat before his call. I cooked these at 425 for about 25 or 30 minutes until they were nice and tender, and they turned out really good. I cook the chicken on my Cuisinart griddle. You could just do it over the stove or on a grill or George Foreman, whatever way works. You just want to cook it until it's 165 degrees internal temperature. Then here are the potatoes. And then for the other side, I just took a zucchini. I cut it up, tossed it with olive oil, salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and I air fried it at 400 degrees for about 8 or 9 minutes. And here are the finished plates. So we have the chicken, the potatoes, and the zucchini. This dinner was so good. Everything. The chicken, potatoes, and zucchini had so much flavor. It was really delicious. I recommend you give this a try. Tonight for dinner, I'm making Korean barbecue tacos. This is just an old El Paso taco kit that I got at Publix on sale, and I wanted to use it up. I'm just going to cook this according to the instructions on the back of the package. In this skillet, I have browned some lean ground beef, and there wasn't a lot of fat, so I didn't have to drain it, but you may need to drain it. I'm going to add in my water and then the seasoning packet. I'm going to stir that together and then allow it to simmer for about 4 or 5 minutes. We hadn't had this kit before, so I tasted just the taco meat, and my husband and I both felt like it needed just a little bit of sugar to balance everything out, so I added just a pinch of brown sugar and stirred it together. The kit came with fajita-sized tortillas and this sesame chili drizzle that I'm going to add to the top of the tacos. The box suggested that you serve this with some cabbage, carrots, and cilantro, so that's what we have here. We weren't super hungry on this night, so we just had the tacos, and they were really good. Now, I can say, though, that the taco meat and the chili sauce, it is a little bit spicy. We love heat, and we love Korean food and Asian food, so to us, it wasn't too hot, but if you're really sensitive to spices, you might not like this kit, but if you do like spice and you like Asian food, I would give this a try. It was really good. For dinner this night, I wanted something quick and easy, and I've been wanting biscuits and gravy, so I decided to make it. Sometimes when I make biscuits and gravy, I'll make my biscuits from scratch, but on this night, I'm just using this canned from Great Value. I'll bake it according to the package instructions. Once my biscuits are done, I'm going to get started on the gravy. So in this skillet, I have it over about medium heat. I'm going to add in some oil. This is just vegetable oil. You can also use butter, bacon grease, whatever you have. Next, I'm going to add in some turkey sausage crumbles. I just had half a package that I wanted to use up. I'm going to stir that together and allow that to cook for just a couple minutes. Now, when you make gravy, you don't have to add in sausage or bacon. You can just use the fat and flour and milk. But if you are going to use like breakfast sausage, which I do a lot of times, like I said, I just wanted to use this up. Don't add any oil at first. Just cook up your breakfast sausage, and once it's cooked, see how much fat you have in the skillet. If you need to add a little bit of grease at that point, do so. But again, you might not need to add any. So once I have the sausage cooked for a couple minutes, I'm going to whisk in some flour. I'm going to allow that to cook for about a minute. You just want to cook that flour taste out. Once that has cooked out, I'm going to add in my milk. Now, I like to add in a little bit of milk, whisk it. Once it starts to get thick, I'll add in a little bit more milk. And you just want to do this until it's the consistency that you like. If you like it thin, you can add more milk. If you like it thick, don't add so much milk. Then I'm going to give it a taste. You'll want to taste it if you're using breakfast sausage or bacon grease, because that has salt in it. You may not need to add a lot of salt. But I'm just going to taste it and then season it with salt and pepper to my taste. And then I'm going to just turn the stove off once it's thick, and that's it. It's done. Now with gravy, I never measure, but I've heard that you can use a ratio of 2 tablespoons of fat, 2 tablespoons of flour, a cup of milk, and that will yield a cup of gravy. I've never tried it before though. Like I said, I never measure, but you can try that ratio if you need a recipe to follow. And here's the finished biscuits and gravy. And if you've never made this before, gravy as it sits, it will thicken up. So I always do it a little bit thinner than what I want it, knowing that as it sits, it's going to thicken up a little bit. And then here is my finished plate. Like I said, I wanted to keep it simple this night, so I just did paper plates. I split my biscuit in half and added some of the gravy, and this was delicious. Tonight for dinner, I made Copycat Café Rio sweet pork salads. I've never eaten at Café Rio, so I don't know how close to being legit this is, but what I do know is this is delicious. I've made this recipe for years, and it is so, so good. I highly recommend you give this a try. This is part of an upcoming collab that I'm going to be doing, so keep an eye out for that video to see how I make this. You'll definitely want to catch that recipe because, like I said, it's amazing. And that's it for this week's What's for Dinner. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.